again. If you haven't been with us over the past couple of weeks, you may not know this, but I love Christmas. I love Christmas. I love the lights. I love the decorations. I love the trappings. I love all the getting together with family and friends. I love Christmas. And I love what it brings together. It brings strangers together and friends together and families reunite. And there's something warm and special about Christmas. And I'm one of those people who will usually listen to Christmas carols before Thanksgiving. I know, my wife gets that. And then I'll probably stretch back a little bit past New Year's if my family will let me. I love Christmas. But I also know that Christmas can be such a difficult time of the year. It can be filled with stress and anxiety and pressure and all the things that go along with that. There is one thing about Christmas I'm not particularly fond of, and that's the whole gift buying thing. I'm not very good at it. It creates a lot of stress in me. I really don't know what to get. There's a story of a guy who had purchased for his wife a beautiful diamond necklace. It was beautiful. And he went to work a couple of days later, and his best friend at work said, but I thought she wanted an SUV. You know, one of those four-wheel drive vehicles. And he said, yeah, but how am I going to give her a fake Jeep? I made you think about that one, didn't I? You know, I remember back in the days when I was in school, I remember all the stress of learning, trying to understand new concepts and theories. And there were some times when I caught myself thinking, why in the world do I need to know this? Did that ever happen to you?
Yeah.
Like, why am I ever going to need to know how to factor all these things when I get out into the real world? No one's going to care about co-signing. What is that? I don't need that. And that would come up again and again and again. And there was always pressure. And then I used to think, well, there's got to be other people who feel this way. And now I see that I've gotten a little older and my children are now in college. I start to hear the same thing from them. I'm never going to need this stuff in life. I think the people in Jesus' day used to say the same thing. I think when Jesus was trying to teach them about ways to live and ways to walk and ways to journey on the earth, and they tried to figure out what God was saying in all those Old Testament stories, they were getting confused. And so Jesus would do something incredible. Jesus would teach in what we call parables. Jesus would tell stories. He would bring up examples of events that happened in their lives and things that they could relate to on a day-to-day basis. Things that they were very common words and common phrases and common experiences. And then he would use those to help them to apply the scriptures of God's word into their own lives. He wanted them to understand in a way that was applicable. A way that would change their hearts. And a way that would change their relationships forever, for the rest of their life. Because he knew how they were created. Because his Father had created us all. But you know, we get so bombarded with all the information we have, don't we? I mean, it used to be way back when you got the news was weeks late. We would find out days or even weeks later when something happened across the world. Now it's in seconds. It happens so quickly. And it's a constant bombardment of everything that's coming at us. There's times when I can hear people say, the world's gone crazy. Or how will things ever turn out to be good? Or the sky is falling. And it'll seem like everybody is in a constant state of despair and disappointment. And you know what that does to us? It opens us up to a whole new temptation in our life. And it's a temptation to just back away. It's a temptation to just withdraw from life. It's a temptation to give up on the hope of the future. It's a temptation to think that there is just nothing but a wet blanket over everything. And that we have no hope for the future. But then God comes into our lives, time and time again, generation after generation, and he rises above all the noise that we hear in our lives. And he gives us a voice of hope. A voice of hope in the world. And he gives his words to his prophets. And his prophets speak these words of hope. And these words of hope are given to the people who are in the same exact situation in life that you and I are in. When everything just seems too despairing. When there seems to be no way out, no way to correct, and no way to look forward. These words that God gave his prophets are the same words that Jesus taught when he was in the synagogues. He knew these words. His Father had given them to the prophets hundreds of years before. And when Jesus went into the synagogues, he began to teach using these same kinds of lessons. In fact, one day he's in the synagogue and Jesus says, "The Spirit of the Lord is on me because he anointed me to preach the good news to the poor, to proclaim freedom." Today, this scripture is fulfilled. Jesus, with the promise of God and the words from the prophet Isaiah, completes these very important words of living hope. You know, over the years, stories can tend to become rote. They can tend to become assumed, mundane. You all know how the story ends at Christmas. You all know what's going to happen tomorrow. We kind of rush through all the people that are sitting there in the Nativity. We don't even question why there are 3 wise men in the Nativity on Christmas Eve. Because we know all the way to the end. If we really think back and we think honestly about the story, they don't show up for years. But we've rushed all the way to the end of the story so that we can get to the most important part of Christmas morning, opening presents. And we've rushed through the story. But the story is so important to us. Because the stories are what fills us with the expectations and the hopes. And yet the world continues to go on, does it not? It continues to rage battle against us, and it continues to deplete our bank accounts that are filled with what little hope we have. But we can be thankful that there are men and women who have taken these words. They've rewritten them. They've redrafted them. They've turned them into ways for us to continue to remember the important parts of our story. You and I call them Christmas carols. But there are ways for us to remember the important theological aspects of what God has done for us and what God will do for us. They're filled with words of hope and vision and the future. Do any of you know the carol, "Do You Hear What I Hear"? It's a good carol, isn't it? It's not in our hymnal. It's not often sung in church. But it's a song that is filled with words of hope. It was written back in 1962. It was written by Noel Riggedy, and he didn't write it because he had a deep-hearted feeling to write it. He wrote it because he was contracted. Somebody hired him to write a Christmas carol. And lo and behold, as he's writing a Christmas carol, and he's thinking about the story of Christmas that he knew well, and he's thinking about the message of God, he realized that there was a lot of weight happening in the world, a lot of nervousness. It was the time of the Cuban Missile Crisis. It was the time when nuclear war was a threat right on the edge. It was a time when people wondered, would there even be a tomorrow? Should they even save for the future? Should they get married? Should they have children? Should they do all the things that give us hope and joy for the future? And there was a lot of disappointment and depression going on. And so he wrote these words together, and he put the words together, and they crafted into beautiful words of hope. And they come from the prophet Isaiah. They come from the prophet Isaiah that was read for us this evening. And then, of course, you all know these words of hope became very popular when Bing Crosby sang them, right? As soon as Bing Crosby sings something, that's it. It then goes double platinum. But he sang a song of hope. I want you to listen to these words. "Do you hear what I hear?" said the night wind to the little lamb. "Do you see what I see? Way up in the sky, little lamb. Do you see what I see? A star. A star that's dancing in the night with a tail that's as big as a kite." He's talking about something new, something completely unexpected that's happening, and it's way up in the air, and you simply can't miss it if you would just look up. And we think about these words from the prophet Isaiah, words he was given by God to deliver to a very special group of people. Words that were delivered hundreds of years before Jesus was even a glimmer in his mother's eye. 500 years before Jesus. The people of Egypt had been exiled, and they were out in Babylon, where they had been cast out as captives. Generations have gone by, and they've been held in captivity. And now the decree comes down, and they're allowed to go back to their homeland. But their homeland is gone. Their homeland has been destroyed. Get a picture in your mind of what our shores looked like after Hurricane Sandy. Get a picture in your mind of what you've seen on the evening news after Hurricane Michael or the tsunamis in Indonesia. These people were going back to absolutely nothing, or probably bare land, but it was their homeland. And they were going back to recreate and build the foundation of hope. Then comes in the prophet Isaiah. He comes out and he speaks to these people as they're trying to rebuild the town, rebuild the walls, and most importantly, to rebuild their temple. And he speaks words into them with blessing after blessing after blessing that their Creator will lavish upon them. He says these horrific conditions that you have going on every day in your lives, they will all be reversed. The oppressed will heal, good news. The brokenhearted will be embraced. The captives and the prisoners will be set free. All who mourn will be comforted. And then God makes this incredible declaration. He says, I will make an everlasting covenant with them. That's a promise. God says, I promise that they shall be known as people whom the Lord has blessed. Blessed. They've gone from people with no hope to people with great hope. And these are words of hope and freedom and deliverance that the prophet wrote. So the little lamb to the shepherd boy, do you hear what I hear? Ringing through the sky, shepherd boy, do you hear what I hear? A song high above the trees with a voice as big as the sea. So let us now fast forward 500 years from the prophet Isaiah until the night where we're at the manger. We're in a little town in the country of Judea, and we're at the home of a couple by the name of Zachariah and Elizabeth. Now, Elizabeth is a woman well into her years. She's been trying for a very long time to have a child, and she just has not been able to. And finally now, by an angel's message, she is now expecting a child. Her cousin comes to visit. Her cousin, who's a very young, very solemn young girl. She comes and explains to her that I too have been visited by an angel, and I too am going to give birth to a child. And I'm engaged, but I'm not yet married. How can this be? And Elizabeth turns to her, and Elizabeth knows that she can support and encourage her with words of hope. And she says, you need to tell people, God gives life where no life was thought to be possible. Those are words of great hope, given to two very unexpected women in the story. Now, we expect lots of different responses from Mary, don't we? Mary's just a young girl, unmarried. What is she going to do? How is she going to afford things? How is she going to act being an outcast into the world? But Mary does something that is so unexpected. But Mary, we learn, is Mary who is filled with hope and reverence and faith. And Mary says, my soul magnifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices. My spirit rejoices in God. He has found me in his favor, and he has looked upon the lowliness of his servant. From Mary, a little girl, you hear words of hope. And then, just then, as the prophet did in Isaiah, and Mary then does turn around and she then proclaims this to others. And she says, God has brought down the powerful from their thrones and lifted up the lowly. He has filled the hungry with good things, and he has sent the rich away empty. Mary tells all that she can that there is great hope in the future. Great hope in the angel's message. Said the shepherd boy to the mighty king, do you hear what I hear? In your palace warm, mighty king, do you hear what I hear? A child shivers in the cold. Let us bring him silver and gold. Something completely new and unexpected is happening. There's this word of hope in a completely hopeless world. Do you hear the words? Do you hear the story upon story over hundreds and hundreds of years and generation after generation? Words of hope. These are the words that are in our Advent story. These are words that we cannot rush through. These are words that we cannot rush through just to get to open presents on Christmas morning. It's the message of the coming of Jesus. Said the King to the people everywhere, listen to what I say. Pray for peace, people, everywhere. Listen to what I say. The child sleeping in the night, he will bring us goodness and light. These are incredible words of hope, and I believe these are words that are far louder and stronger than the wails of the sirens and the sounds of the shotguns and the sounds of the complaining and the crying and the sounds of rebellion. These are words that should give us deep, deep hope. These are words that should be deafening to us at this time of the year. These are words that should overwhelm us with emotion and gladness and joy and thanks. Do you hear what I hear this time of the year? Do you hear the words of Advent? Do you hear the words of hope and promise and forgiveness and grace and deliverance? It's the most unexpected story that we've ever heard. It's the story that's still told 2,018 years later. Christmas is the story of cities decorating their streets and their sidewalks with lights and decorations. Christmas is the story of gifts and wrapping paper and bows. Christmas is the story of trees and ornaments and fireplaces. Christmas is the story of expectation and hope, a deep, deep hope, a hope that drives away any fears that we may have. It's a hope that drives us all the way back to the beginning of the story, the manger, where it all began, for a very specific purpose, because that is where God entered into our world. And that is when God invited you and I to be part of this great, great, great story. The story of hope. It started in the manger with a little baby and a young girl and the voice of an angel. It started with a misunderstood man who was struggling every day to keep his family together. And it went from there. And it spread. It's about a child who will bring light into darkness, joy into despair, revealing a God who is going to come and redeem us all, a God who is leaving the glory of heaven to come down into the glory of the cross. It's God who's becoming flesh and blood and bones. It's God who is loving. And it's God who is offering you an invitation to be back in relationship with Him. It's a story that's way too complicated for us to ever understand. It's a story that's way too deep for us to ever get to the bottom, and it's a story that's way too great for us to ever overshadow. And it's too beautiful for us to dismiss. This is Christmas. And this is the story of all stories you've ever heard. And it all starts tonight. My prayer for you in this year coming up is that you will find a way to open that present tonight. Before you open the packages and all the boxes tomorrow morning, before you get knee-deep in all the wrapping paper, I hope that tonight is the night that you open the gift you've been given. And that you let that gift enter into your hearts. And you allow that gift to change what needs to be changed. And to give you the guidance and the direction that you need to move in the way that the Creator created you to live. This story is about hope for the future. And it's a hope that we have to share in this world. We cannot let the darkness of the world overcome it. Do you hear what I hear this Christmas? I hope you will listen and sing along with us as we ask this very same question this evening of ourselves and those around us, of our family and friends when we gather, maybe before you even start your meal on Christmas Day, is to ask the question, do you hear what I hear? The voice of hope